We're building an awesome project in this video. We're going to be using Rust and we're building a password vault. So if you run this program, if I make it full screen, you'll see the ASCII art printed here, pass vault. And I have 4 options. The first option is to add an entry. Let's say if I want to add the entry for my AWS server and I say username is Akhil, password is 123. Then I can add one more entry and I'll add this for my render.com password. And I'll put the username as Akhil, again the password as 123. Now I can list all the entries that I have put in the past. These are all of the entries. So what I'm doing in the background is I'm creating a JSON file with all of the entries, and now I can list all of, and that's how I've listed basically all of the entries. Now I can search for them as well. So if I say render, it'll give out the entry that I just created for render. So it's also doing a search function. Everything is happening on the CLI. It's a great tool to build, great small project in case you haven't built a CLI project before with Rust. It's simple, it's great for beginners, nothing complex happening here, no complex concepts, great build in we'll build it in like 20 minutes or so. So let's get started. The program is going to be really straightforward, just 6 functions divided in 2 different files. I'll have the main.rust file, main.rs file, which will have the main function and the CLR function. And then I'll have another file, I can name it anything I want. I'll call it something like password entry or something like that. I'll have these 4 functions. So I need a function to write to my JSON file. I need a function to read passwords from my file. Those are the first and second options in those 4 that you saw in the demo. Then the prompt function basically accepts inputs from the user after printing stuff out to JSON, helps me write to the file. So it's like a helper function that'll help me convert the data into JSON. And I'll use serialization for that. And the CLR function helps me clear out the screen. The main function will list out all of our options and call all of the other functions. So the way I've done it is I've created 2 different files just to keep things cleaner. We could have done it in one file, but just 2 files is just cleaner, separation of concern. So this is how the plan is going to be, really straightforward. So let's start with building the project. So I'll create a new project with cargo new, pass vault, YT for YouTube, and I'll cd into it, pass vault, and I'll open this up in my code editor. And here I have my main.rs file, and I will create just one more file. This is my password entry file, and in the main.rs we will import this package, the password entry package, and as you know, I'll need a couple of functions. So I'll need, let's say, use create password entry. I'll need the prompt function. They'll help me print out stuff and then also accept values from the user, and the read passwords from file function, which will basically print out everything that the file has. So the first function that I need is the clear function. It will help me clear everything out. So this will help me clear out everything. And then the main function, and from the main function I'm basically going to call the clear function first, and then I'm going to print out everything in the terminal. So here I'm going to add my ASCII art. So you can go to Google, go to any, you can just search for ASCII art creator and get your own art, or you can simply copy and paste mine and use this, not a problem. And after that, you just want to print this art. So you'll say ASCII to printed. And then we want to loop through all the options. So the first option that we have is the password manager menu. So if you remember the demo, it just said password manager menu, and then it gave us the first option, which was add entry, and I'll just copy this a couple of times. After the add entry, we had the second option, which was list all the entries. Then we had search for a particular entry, so I'll just say search entry, and the fourth one was to quit. Then what we'll do is we'll take the choice from the user, and then we'll match all of those choices. So let's say, for example, if the choice was 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and then we'll call the relevant function depending on that. So first we'll say let mute choice is equal to string, and we're just going to read line and read the user's choice, and that will be available to us as this mutable called choice. So now whatever the user prints in will be available to us as this mutable called choice, this mutable variable called choice, which is a string, and we will match the choice after trimming it, because there could be spaces, so we don't want those spaces. We want to match it with 1, and we want to perform some steps if the user selects 1. We want to perform some different steps if the user selects 2, and different steps if the user selects 3, and similarly different steps if the user selects 4. Now I will not work on the first option because that creates a new entry, and for that I need some structs that I'll have to create in the pentry.rs file. For now I'll just work with the second option, which starts with clear, and I will have to create services, and these services basically I'm going to get from my JSON file, and for that I'll need this function which is read passwords from file. Then I'll use unwrap or else. Just be careful here. And here if there's an issue, if there's an error, I'll just print out error reading passwords and print out the actual error here. So services in our case is going to be a vector. Vector will help us print out all the services in the sense with the passwords and the username. So I'll say vector new, and now I'll loop over the services. So now I know that the services is a vector, so I'll say for item, so each item in services ln so there were 3 things, right? Username, password. So for each service we'll print the username and the password. And now with these I'll have to print out the actual values, which will be available to me in item dot service item.username and item.password. For the third option, as you remember, I have to search for that particular service. So I'll have to match the service with all the values. So first what I'll do is I'll read all the values from the file, I'll get all the values, all the passwords with the services, and then I'll loop over them, match them one by one with the service that I want to match it for. That's how the search will happen. So again, I'll print clear, and this part we can actually copy and paste as is, okay, which is the first step we need to do, which is to get all the services and passwords as services, and it's a new vector. Now instead of just printing it out like we did in the second step, I'm going to actually search. So I'm going to say prompt search, and then we'll handle the part where we actually ask for the search query. Now this is the similar loop that we did in the previous step as well, and we will now match the service. Have to ensure it's string with search as string. I will println service is equal to minus username dash password and now we have to actually access those values. So those values are available to us in item.service, item.username. So for the particular value where the item.service is matching the search term, we will say we'll print it out. So we'll say item.service, item.username, item.password. In the fourth option, we're not doing much. Start with clear, and we'll just print ln by so if we go beyond 4, then we'll just print invalid choice and print next line. Okay. Now let's talk about the first option which we have left. For the first option, I'll start with clear, and I'll say let entry is equal to service info new. Now service info is something that I need. Service info is actually just a struct, so I'll say public struct service info, and it has service, which is a string, it has username, which is string, and it has password, which is string. Okay, and before that we will debug serializing t serialize. For this struct, I will implement some functionality. So I'll say impl service info, and firstly I'll have the function new. So for service info new, I'll now create that function. I'll say pub function new service string username string and password string. And here I'll create the service info, service, comma, username, comma, password. Okay, so that will help us initialize a new service info. Just want to take a quick moment to tell you that this particular video is going to be part of this 50 Rust projects series on my channel. So there are 50, I'm trying to build 50 different projects in Rust with varying level of difficulty. And the way I'm trying to organize these projects is in an increasing level of difficulty. So this particular project, it's slightly easy, it's beginner friendly. So it'll be towards the beginning, somewhere towards the beginning. And more difficult projects basically make it to the end of this playlist. And like the Rust project playlist, there's also the Golang project playlist also on my channel. This is the one, so it has 49 projects in Golang. You might want to check that out as well. Then this particular project has already been built. It's on my GitHub. So in case you don't find the GitHub link in the description and you're facing problems or challenges with this project, just know that I'm Akhil Sharma 90 on GitHub. Make sure you get that there. Now, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll also see a link to the Discord community, and that Discord community basically will lead you here, which is the Discord community for this particular YouTube channel. And we discuss a lot of stuff there, like whatever we are learning, and with Golang and Rust, you can ask for help. We can discuss a lot of things here. So there are more than 600 people now, I think, in this community. So make sure you join that in case you want to keep learning Golang and Rust. All right, now back to our project. Okay, so back to our program really quickly. I want to get my hands on the deserialize and serialize packages because that's the one that I'm using here, and that comes from Serde. So from Serde, I'll get deserialize and serialize. We've already talked about and built projects with this particular package before. Then I need the standard to work, the standard FS to work with file. And I might be making a lot of mistakes here, but please bear with me. Like, there must be a lot of typos, and like I did here, which was having just one semicolon, colon instead of two. Don't worry too much about these issues for now. I am not using Rust Analyzer. It helps, I know it helps you correct everything as you write. I'm not using it. I find it a bit distracting, but what I'll do is I will fix all of these issues at the end, and I depend on the Rust compiler to help me through those issues. Now I'm just getting all the important packages that I would need to work with files, to work with I'll just show you, basically I'll just show you what I'll need these with, because we have to create the JSON file, right, and also we have to read from the file. So I'll need all of these, but let me actually show you in practice. All right, so here I will need one more function called from JSON, so which accepts JSON string. And uses Serde JSON. And we'll say Serde JSON from string JSON string. Okay. So we have this from JSON function. We'll also have a to JSON function. So to be able to write to JSON, and this is to read from JSON. Now let's work on the from user input. So I'll say from user input function, and this is where we basically accept the values. So we have println enter the password entry, I'll create a mutable service which is string and new, and I will use the IO package and stand input to accept users input. So I'll say dot read line as a mutable object service, and if there's an issue I'll just say failed to read line. Okay, so if you remember, the first thing that we accept is the service, the name of the service, like AWS, GCP or DigitalOcean, whatever, and for that service we accept the username and password. Okay, so this is what I've done now. I've accepted the service, and now I will accept the username and the password. Okay, so the next thing that I will do is I will print ln. I'll just copy and paste this here. I'll give it a space, and here I will just say enter username. And the best part is that once you've written this thing, right, you don't have to write it again and again. You'll just copy and paste it. Okay, instead of service, this will be username, and then it will be again username. The third thing will be password, so I'll go ahead and write password here. Sorry. And I'll copy and paste this exactly after that. All right. And service info new, which we are basically saying out here for service info new, it takes in the service, trims it, ensures that it's a string. Same with username and password. So we had the from JSON function. Now I will just copy and paste it because I need the to JSON function. And instead of this, just takes in &self, returns back a string, and here instead of from it will be to string &self dot expect failed to serialize JSON. Then we have the write to file function, which will help us write to the file. But before I write that function, let's go back to my main.rs and I will complete this. So here, now you know that we can prompt for the service username and password. So if the entry was added successfully, you will write that in the terminal, and also you'll write to file. Okay, so whatever the service was, you will say that it was added successfully, and then you will call the write to file function. So write to file function is what we will now work on. So here we'll say pub function write to file. So first we'll select JSON output equal to format self.to_JSON. And we'll say match open options new dot create true. So this is, we're just telling it that, hey, if the file is not there, then you create it. If it's already exists, then append to it, and the name of the file is going to be passwords.json. So that new file will be created here. And now most importantly, we'll use the file to be able to work with the file. We'll say file.write_all and JSON_output.asByte. So this is where we are actually writing to the file, and println, there was an error writing to the file. If there's an error, this is what we print out, and we print out the actual value of the error, which is available to us as E. Okay. Else, if everything went well, we will print ln successfully wrote to passwords.json. I'll cover this in double quotes. And if you're not able to open up the file, then we'll just say, right, so we open up password.json file, and after opening you write to the file, and then you say successfully wrote to password.json. If you are not able to open it, then you'll just print out the error, and you'll say println error opening file, E. Then we just have two more functions left. With the one is the read passwords from file function, and the other is the prompt function. So let's work on the prompt function first. And let's actually print out the prompt that we receive and this function. which is a string. Let's create a mutable called input, which is string new, and here we'll just read the input. So for example, when we were using the prompt function for service username password, every single value, whenever you're calling the prompt function, it just reads the response to that value. So for example, password, and then the user inputs the password, and then you listen for that. So to listen for that and read from the terminal, so for that the function is read line. And this is why you create a variable like input, which is string new, because you then can call the readline function and capture that value in this input variable. And the readline function is available to you in IO std in. And finally, we'll just trim the input. So for example, if you're entering the password, username, or service, whatever, like for example, AWS for service or Akhil for username, you want to trim out the spaces and ensure it's a string value. So prompt was really straightforward. Now read from file is, what it's doing is basically reading whatever is there in the passwords.json file, right? And the result is a vector in the form of service info. Service info is the struct that we created earlier. So first let's talk about the file. The file is equal to, using the file package, we'll use the open function and open passwords.json file, which we're assuming exists. That's why we're trying to read from that file. To be able to read, you use reader, which is available to you in the IO buff reader. That's why I said I'll show you where to use it. Going back here, buff reader. Create services, which again is a vector. And now I will run a loop. So I'll say for line in reader.lines. So recursively read that file basically. And we know that the file is a JSON file. So we're working with the JSON file. Service info. And now I'll call my helper function the from JSON function, because we're reading from JSON. And I will take the services vector and I will push the service info one by one. Okay, so what's happening here is that the JSON file exists called passwords.json file. In that file there are multiple objects. Those multiple objects are of type service info, but because Rust does not know about JSON, so we'll first have to convert that JSON file and take the data from that and convert those into structs that we understand. Now those structs are service info structs, which has a service, username and password, and we need to be able to do that with all the data in the JSON file. So what we do is we create a file by opening passwords.json file, which is available now to us as file, and then we read from that file. Then we create a vector called services, and this is the one that we want to return from this function. and you loop over that. So you loop over everything that you have in from reader.lines, so whatever you're reading from the file. And if so for each line, right, you'll get service info, which is from the JSON string. So service info being this one is considered as one service info. So there will be multiple such objects there. And then one by one, you have to push it to services object or the services vector. And that vector basically has a collection of multiple objects. And that's the one that you return from the read passwords from file function. Prompt, very clear that whenever you print out something, like let's say username or password or service, you will accept the user from the input from the user. To accept the input from the user, you'll have a mutable variable called input, and that's how you will accept it with the read line function available to you in the IO standard in. Right. So when I was writing these two functions, I didn't explain much, but now I'm explaining because I just wanted to focus on getting the functions right. And in the service info implementation, this is the implementation some functionality that we have added for the service info struct. We have the new function which helps us initialize a new service info being something that has service username and password. Then we have the from JSON function and the to JSON function, which are using SERDE, which we have worked with before, serializing to JSON and deserializing from JSON into structs. Then we have the from user input function. This isn't doing much. Actually, it is just asking the user to enter the password entry and then accepting the service, accepting the username, and accepting the password, which all ends up making one service info. So one service info consists of a service, a username, and a password. Everything else is, and then write function and read function, I think, are pretty clear. Write function, there's not much happening there. Create, append, and open passwords or JSON file, and you write everything as JSON. That's basically it. If there was a problem opening the file, then you just print out the error. So this was it. Now one more thing is we have to add some dependencies. So I will go ahead, add some dependencies. And though everything looks all right, I'm sure there are like hundreds of issues. So what I'll do is I'll open up my terminal and I will just run this program, and then I will fix all those issues one by one. Right, so here it should have been a small s, I know that. So this is pentree.rs, line number 96, pentree.rs, line number 96. Okay, and I can see many more issues here on top. Okay, there's an issue there. Yeah, I can see so many issues, right? So this is what I depend on really, the compiler. So here on line 56, I need self. On line 56, I need self. Same thing, it's the same thing again and again. On line 65, on line 65, sorry. On line 65, it's saying that something is very wrong here. So let's check out what's the issue. Yeah, here there is something quite wrong with the program, and that is that I have not said if let error is equal to, and that's how I'll handle the error later on, right? So I've not done that. Okay, and now I'll just go ahead and run the program again. So now also I have a lot of issues still. So let's go. So this needs to have the name should be username on line 75. So it should be line 75 here, username, should be a comma here. Okay, and on pantry line 15, it's saying cannot find string, which is fair enough. So as you can see here, you can be a complete idiot, right, and make all the mistakes you can make, and still get away with it with Rust, and still fix everything at the end. Okay, so I know there are a lot more issues, but I just like to run cargo run again, just to ensure that I'm focusing only on the right ones. Okay, so line number 42, there's something to do with password, pantry line number 42. So here, yeah, it should be password. Okay, so this is why copying and pasting things is dangerous in production, because you end up making these kind of mistakes. You don't want to. And then I'll run cargo run again. So now you can see issues are reducing quite a bit, and here you have main.rs line 39. Let me check that out. Right, for the service info error, all I have to do is go to main.go, check out line number 39, which is service info. So the issue is because I have not told Rust that I want service info. So I'll go ahead and get it. And then the next issue here was line 82, pentry. 82. So here I have to return services. So I'll go here and I'll say okay, services, and now I'll again run. So now as you can see, it's running. So all the issues have been ironed out, and that's the beauty of using Rust. You can completely depend on the compiler. It won't let you do anything wrong, and it's not very easy to write bugs as well. So I'll say services AWS, username Akhil, password is 1, and let's list the entries. I can see that here, and I can search the entries. I'll say AWS, and it prints out AWS 1 for me. So I will add one more entry, GCP, again Akhil 1, and I'm adding this entry just to test out the third, which is, does it return the exact value that we're looking for? It does. It works perfectly. So all the options are working perfectly fine, and the project works really well. Thank you for watching. I hope you had a great time building this project along with me. Do not forget to like this video so that it's shared with more people. Do not forget to share this video with people who you think would need this, and also let me know in the comments any other type of videos that you'd like to see, that you'd like to learn from, other projects that you'd want me to build.